There comes a moment in the life of every wolf who has ever been suppressed, forgotten, and made to feel small when the pressure reaches its absolute limit. It's that breaking point when everything that has been held down, pushed aside, and silenced decides that it has been patient for far too long. For Seraphina Vale, that moment had been building, simmering beneath the surface for 18 long years. It arrived, completely and finally, in the great hall of Iron Moon Castle. The High Priestess's suppression ritual was crashing down around her, and the precious mate bond she shared with Kale was flickering between her fingers like a candle caught in a raging storm. The ritual hit her in relentless waves, a cold, suffocating pressure that was all too familiar. She recognized it instantly. This was Marin's life's work. 40 years of carefully maintained suppression, a spiritual cage applied to every omega to keep them docile and powerless. Seraphina had only survived it for so long because she had become a master of her own containment, burying her true self so deep that even she could barely find it. But now, the lock wasn't just being turned. It was being thrown hard, slammed shut with the force of a desperate tyrant. She felt it as a physical weight, a crushing force intent on extinguishing the last embers of her spirit. Kale was just 3 steps away, his body rigid as he fought against the ritual's pull. His eyes, fixed on her, were a maelstrom of fury and desperation. The guards around them were frozen, held in place by the same invisible field that was trying to break her. High Priestess Marin stood at the center of it all, her voice ringing with fanatical conviction. She declared her intention to prevent the prophecy of the Silver Fire, a prophecy she claimed would destroy the pack's sacred hierarchy and plunge them all into chaos. She was saving them, she insisted, by snuffing out the supposed threat Seraphina represented. But Kale's voice cut through her tirade, sharp and clear. "You lie," he growled, the sound vibrating with pure alpha power. "The prophecy says the Luna will complete the Alpha, not replace him. It speaks of balance, not destruction." With those words, Marin's deception was laid bare for all to see. Her carefully constructed mask of piety and concern finally cracked, revealing the raw, ugly ambition beneath. A flicker of panic crossed her face before she hardened her resolve, pouring even more energy into the ritual. The suppression slammed into Seraphina again, stronger this time. It felt like her very bones were being ground to dust. But amidst the pain, something new stirred within her. A voice ancient and powerful that she had long forgotten. Her inner wolf, the part of her she had hidden away, was awake. And she was furious. Fight asterisk, the wolf urged. Asterisk, have you forgotten who you are? Have you forgotten the silver fire that burns in your veins? Asterisk, guided by that primal voice, Seraphine's mind flooded with memories. Not just of the pain and the loneliness, but of the strength she had always possessed. She remembered the feeling of the wind in her fur, the call of the moon, the unshakable connection to Kale that Marin was so desperate to sever. He was her mate, her other half. The prophecy wasn't about destruction. It was about completion. It was about them. In that moment of clarity, everything changed. Seraphina stopped fighting the light within her. She stopped resisting, stopped trying to contain the brilliant silver fire that was her birthright. Instead, she opened herself to it completely, letting it flow through every part of her being. The suppression ritual, designed to crush resistance, suddenly found nothing to push against. It was like trying to punch water. With no resistance to fuel it, the dark magic faltered, sputtered, and then collapsed entirely. A soft glow began to emanate from Seraphine's skin. It grew brighter and brighter, a radiant silver light that pushed back the shadows in the great hall. The suffocating pressure lifted, and for the first time in 18 years, Seraphina Vale felt truly, completely free. The light came up, and with it, a new era was about to begin. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next part of Seraphine's journey. See you in the next video. She thought of the light she had carried for 18 years, the gift she had apologized for, the power she had buried and contained and hidden in gray tunics and borrowed corners and moonflower gardens where she wasn't supposed to be. She thought of Marin's face saying leave before the moon rises full. She thought of Lucian saying stop hiding. She thought of the ancient voice in her own chest saying the waiting is almost over. Yes, she said. I choose it. What happened next would be described differently by every witness who tried to put it into words afterward. The pack historians would write, at the moment of the Luna's formal acceptance, the silver fire reached completion, and the Iron Moon Great Hall was illuminated by a light of undocumented origin that lasted for approximately 40 seconds. Lucian, who had come through the side door during Marin's first speech and had been standing against the wall with his arms crossed and his expression somewhere between relieved and deeply satisfied, would describe it as like someone turned the ceiling into a window and the moon looked in. The ranked wolves who crowded the outer courtyard, drawn by the unusual light pouring from the great hall's high windows, would simply tell each other for years afterward that they had felt it, not seen it, felt it, as a warmth in the chest, as a rightness as the pack bond, deepening and clarifying like a signal that had been receiving static for 40 years, suddenly coming through clean. What Seraphina experienced was simpler and more complete than any of these descriptions. She felt herself fully for the first time, not the contained self, not the apologetic self, not the gray tunic, lowered eyes, invisible in the corridor self. The whole thing, the light and the wolf and the ancient blood and the girl who had looked at the moon like she recognized it. All of it. Marin was arrested. This was Lucian's work, efficiently conducted. He had apparently been prepared for this possibility and had 2 senior Beta officers positioned outside the hall before the ceremony began. The High Priestess was taken to the castle as upper holding rooms with the brisk efficiency of a man who had been waiting for this particular moment for longer than he had told anyone. The catacombs were found and sealed. The ritual circle was dismantled. The official records of 30 years of suppressed Omega reports were pulled and reviewed. Several of the documented voluntary departures from the lower quarters were reclassified as missing persons cases. It took 3 days. Seraphina watched most of it from the position that she was still technically adjusting to, standing beside the Alpha King in his war chamber, present at his council meetings, wearing not gray, but the deep blue of an Alpha consort, not yet the full golden midnight. Luna, regalia not until the formal ceremony, but the first color she'd worn in 6 years, that was not the color of invisibility. She kept waiting for someone to tell her it was a mistake, that she needed to go back to the North grounds, that the rules hadn't actually changed, that the hierarchy was resilient, and she was still Omega, and the light was still something to apologize for. No one said this. What they said, the council members, the court wolves, even the 12 Luna candidates who departed the castle with varying degrees of gracious acceptance, was nothing mostly. A careful, recalibrating silence. The silence of people reassessing what they thought they knew. And then, slowly, something else. Not all at once, not dramatically. But a Beta she'd never spoken to held the door for her. A Gamma soldier, passing in the corridor, inclined his head. The head cook Brenda, encountering her in the lower corridor, said, I always thought there was something about you, girl. Congratulations, and managed to make it sound like she had said it many times before, and was, simply finally getting the opportunity. The world, it turned out, could adjust faster than it had been pretending. On the 3rd evening, after the council had dispersed, and the castle had settled into its reconfigured rhythm, Seraphina found herself in the East Garden. Her bench, her night bloom wall, the moon 3/4 full, edged in silver. She heard footsteps and knew them without turning. Kale sat beside her on the stone bench. Not at the far end, Close. The way you sit beside someone whose proximity is not a concession but a preference. They were both quiet for a moment, looking at the moon. I should tell you something, he said. You keep saying that, she said. The very edge of something crossed his face, not quite a smile, but the terrain immediately adjacent to one. I should tell you, he said, that the night you were in this garden, the night I returned, I saw you from the war chamber window, before my brother found you, before you knew I was back. A pause. You were looking at the moon, and you were... He paused again, searching for the word with the care of a man who did not say things carelessly. You were more present in that moment than anyone I had seen in 7 years, like you were genuinely there. Not performing being there. He stopped. I noticed you before I walked past you on the stairs. I know that makes the way I behaved on the stairs worse. I'm aware of that. Serafina looked at him. He was looking at the moon, and his profile in the moonlight was exactly as severe as the paintings, and also, somehow, entirely different. The severity was real, but it was the severity of someone who had built very strong walls around something that was not cold at all. When you carry something that you're afraid of, she said carefully, you get very good at making it invisible. I understand that better than most people. He turned. They looked at each other in the moonlight, the mate bond warm between them, the silver fire quiet in her chest. Tell me about it, he said. The fire, from the beginning. So she did. The Luna ceremony happened at the full moon. She wore gold and midnight blue. Her copper hair was loose. She had declined to put it up, and the court stylist had looked briefly stricken, and then, upon encountering Seraphine's expression, had adjusted his own view of what was required. Her silver eyes were open and unguarded, and the light was present, not blazing, not aggressive, but there, visible just beneath the surface of her skin, a luminescence that had no name in the current hierarchy texts, and would require new ones. It came up like a tide, like sunrise, like a sound too low to hear, but felt in the chest. It came up through the black marble floor and through her kneeling body in a cascade of silver-white luminescence. The great hall went white. Marin screamed. It was the first uncontrolled sound Serafina had ever heard from her. The ritual shattered. The high priestess staggered backward, her ceremony book falling from her hands, her eyes blinded by the silver radiance. Serafina rose. She stood up straight, and she was tall, in the way of someone who has never before occupied their full body. From somewhere very deep, very old, the wolf was rising too. Something the older texts called the silver flame's completion. Her eyes blazed. Not white now, silver, pure, brilliant, moving silver, like the moon reflected in deep water. The veil bloodline, she said, was not extinct, was not eliminated, was not failed. It was waiting. Marin was backed against the wall. Her acolytes fled, her ritual dispersed, her 40 years of careful work undone in 30 seconds. You don't know what you are, Marin said. You don't know what this power does to the stability of everything. I know exactly what it does, Serafina said. It makes the Omega stronger than the Alpha King, and then it stands beside him. Kale Draven was standing 6 feet away, looking at her with an expression of awe, recognition, and certainty. His storm-gray eyes were not cold. They were the storm itself, alive, dynamic, moving. The mate bond between them was blazing. I've been told my whole life that certain things are myths, shrew mates, silver bloodlines. I believe I was lied to. He took 3 steps across the marble floor. He stopped directly in front of her. The light between them pulsed in a shared rhythm. The Luna selection, he said quietly, is concluded. By the authority of the Alpha King, true mate supersedes all other claims. If you choose it, he said, I'm not commanding, I'm asking. Do you choose it? She stood on the dais, and the entire pack of the Iron Moon Kingdom stood in the courtyard and the great hall and the corridors. And the grounds and Kale-Draven stood beside her, not in front of her, not above her, beside her. And the High Alpha of the Northern Allied Pacts called in for the ceremony, read the words of the Luna Bond. When it was done, Kale spoke. Not the formal prepared speech. His counselors had provided him one. He had apparently read it once and set it aside. The Luna of the Iron Moon Kingdom, he said, his voice carrying across the gathered pack with the natural resonance of an Alpha King, is not ranked by the hierarchy. She is not a selection or a calculation or a political alliance. She is the completion of an old promise, a promise this bloodline made to itself before the hierarchy was built, before the ranking system, before the priestesses and the rules and the 40 years of deliberate distortion. He looked at Seraphina. The pack will be different now. Better, I expect. She see to that. The gathered pack was silent for a moment. Then someone in the back of the courtyard, Seraphina never found out who, began to howl. Not the formal howl of pack ceremony, the real one. The old one, the one that means I am here and I am known. And the entire pack of the Iron Moon Kingdom, thousands of wolves, ranked and omega, warrior and servant, old and young, answered it. The silver fire in Seraphine's chest blazed up one more time, wild and incandescent, and she let it come. She did not press her hand against her sternum. She did not whisper down, not yet, not here. She opened her hands, and a light came out, and the great hall and the courtyard and the night sky above the Iron Moon Kingdom were illuminated in silver for a long, breathing moment, not an explosion, not an attack, not a threat, a greeting. The moon goddess, looking down through the full silver disk above the castle, seemed to lean in closer. And from somewhere very deep, very old, very patient, an ancient wolf that had been waiting for this precise moment for 18 years, threw its enormous silver head back and howled. Epilogue fragment. 3 weeks later, a letter arrived at the Iron Moon Castle from the Eastern Territories, unsigned, on paper that smelled of cold pine and old smoke. It contained 4 words. She was always right. Lucian, who intercepted the letter and read it before delivering it, was not surprised. He had been conducting a quiet, careful, months-long investigation into the old pack records, and he had found, among the suppressed files and the reclassified departures, and the careful erasures of Marin's 40-year project, a single entry. A woman, Omega class, silver spectrum eyes, documented 12 years before Seraphine's birth, not eliminated, not lost, hidden. He placed the letter on the Luna's desk. Seraphina Vale read it once. Then she looked out the window at the northern forest, the dark pine and silver birch, moving in slow, speaking waves, and the silver fire in her chest said something it had never said before, in a voice that was entirely her mother's. I knew you'd find your way home.